Hey guys, hope everybody's doing well today. Today I want to talk about the 4% rule. It's useful. It's a useful place to start when you're just starting and trying to figure out a retirement game plan. And that is the most appropriate use for it. It's wonderful if you're just getting started with retirement planning and you need to have a rough idea of where you're at. Otherwise, it's a mistake. To be used in any other way is, in my opinion, a grave error. So let me talk about the 4% rule and give you the good points, the bad points, and the ugly points about it so you'll be well informed. Let me start with the good. As I said, the 4% rule is a wonderful place to start if you're just digging in to try to figure out where you're at as far as retirement planning goes. It was developed by Bill Bengen back in 1994. Yeah, that was the year I graduated from college. And it was intended to try to answer the question, how much can I withdraw? What's a safe amount to withdraw from my retirement investments to make sure that I do not run out of money in retirement? So let's talk about the good with this. It looked at stock market returns from 1929 to 1991, a 30-year rolling average. And so over that time period, he looked to see what is the maximum I can withdraw, where at the end of any 30-year period, it would still have money available. Now that could be, as much as you can imagine or as little as $1. So if you ended the 30-year period with at least $1, then that was considered success, which was great because before that point, there was no real good solid research to answer that question. So for what it was, that was an awesome thing to be able to provide research, and thus became the basis for retirement planning for a long time, and it's still around today. Also, for those who are interested in the FIRE movement, the financial independence, retire early group of people, you can kind of take a spin on that and basically say you need to have 25 times your annual expenses in order to be able to experience that financial independence. So essentially, if your expenses amount to $40,000 a year, then you multiply that by 25 and you would come up with $1 million. So that would imply that you need to have at least $1 million in order to be financially independent. But that's just another spin on the 4% rule, because if you have $1 million, then that means you could withdraw up to 4% per year and not run out of money based upon the historical period that was evaluated in the stock market. So that was the good. Now let's talk about the bad. It was a theoretical exercise. It was not really designed for reality. For one thing, it does not take into consideration Social Security. So Social Security is an important part of most people's retirement plan and should be factored into your retirement planning. So to just exclude Social Security entirely is not something you'd want to do in retirement planning. Second thing is it didn't take into account taxes. Taxes is a very important consideration in retirement, especially since a lot of us have put away money and have investments that are in pre-tax accounts, which means you got to pay the tax man when you take that money out. So that's an important consideration. Also, another thing that I'll mention is that there was an assumption that you would increase that 4% based upon the rate of inflation of the prior year. And there's plenty of research out there to indicate that during the last portion of your retirement, if you live into old age, you typically, on an inflation-adjusted basis, end up spending less. So it's referred to as a retirement smile, where you spend more in early retirement because you're active and you're healthy in theory. And then as you age, you slow down and you reach the point where you're not really doing much traveling and you're just kind of staying put. You typically spend a lot less until the very, very last few years of your life, when typically medical costs start to increase. So that's referred to as the retirement smile. And that is another thing that the 4% rule does not take into account, which is a mistake. Now, as far as the ugly, the 4% rule, again, assumes if you had a positive account balance at the end of that 30-year period, then that was considered a success. But in reality, a lot of people want to have money available when they pass away to provide to kids or charities. So it doesn't take into account any legacy goals, which I think is a mistake for a lot of people. Now, if you're single or if you're married and you don't have any kids and family and you're not, charitably inclined, then perhaps, that would be more applicable. But most people are not in that situation. And Bill Bengen even admitted himself he does not use the 4% rule in his retirement planning. So again, that kind of lends itself to a great theoretical exercise, but there's a lot of limitations in implementing this in practical terms. I do think it is a great starting point, though, just to reiterate. If you're new to retirement planning or seeking financial independence, then start with the 4% rule. The appropriate place is back of the napkin math when you're just getting started, but certainly you need to develop a retirement plan or a financial independence plan that takes into account some of these other considerations. And so there you have it, the 4% rule in a nutshell. So I hope you enjoyed this content. Again, my name is Walter, and this channel exists for those interested in a perspective on early retirement, planning for retirement, or just want to live a life of financial freedom. So if you found this content useful, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and hey, leave a comment. Do you agree with my assessment of the 4% rule, or would you disagree? Why or why not? I'd be interested in your comments. Okay, take care. We'll see you next time.